powerful the Atlas, blasted aloft by 360,000 pounds of thrust, carry the Mercury gracefully skyward.
Earth, our home. It is the third planet from the Sun. It is the only planet known to have an atmosphere containing free oxygen, ocean on its surface, and of course, life. John Glenn changed humanity on Earth. He proved that we as humans can go beyond our own set limits by being the first human to orbit around our beloved Earth. He was born July 18th, 1921 in Cambridge, Ohio. Attending secondary schools in New Concord, he then went to Muskingum College, getting a Bachelor in Science and Engineering. He later entered the Naval Aviation Cadet Program in March 1942, graduated and commissioned in the Marine Corps in 1943. After World War II, he was assigned in 63 piloting missions, flying for approximately 9,000 hours of flight time. After all his experience in flight, he was given his first space mission in Mercury Atlas 6.
The Mercury Atlas 6 is one of the most memorable missions ever to be launched. The mission was to get a man to orbit the Earth 3 times before landing safely. America was in a huge race against Russia as they were both competing over who could do it first. The launch happened on the 20th of February 1962, after many stressful years of planning. The organisation before the mission was named NACA, specialising in weaponry. Later it was named NASA for the use of space exploration once in the Mercury Atlas 6 mission.
People ask, were you afraid during launch? Well, not afraid to the point where it's going to interfere with what you're doing, because you've trained very hard for this, you have a job to do, you're part of the systems, you're part of the reporting, and you're very busy.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway. Feel loud and clear.
In about 5.5 minutes from launch, you turn the corner up here and are accelerating into orbital speed, and that gets you up to about 17,500 miles an hour, which figures out to be just under 5 miles a second, so people understand that a little bit better. You just have enough fuel with the weight to get just to barely get you into orbit.
There were many employees involved in the mission, although one of the most important behind the desk was Katherine Johnson. She calculated the trajectory of the vessel, and if not for her, the mission would not have been possible.
What kind of work did they have you doing?
When you first went to NASA, it was mathematics, but it was the same thing all the time. All engineers would come up with a set of equations, and you had to run them through what you call a time history. Maybe it was some data they wanted to follow for X number of days.
Leading up to the mission, there were many exercises and test runs needed for the mission to run smoothly. John Glenn had to perform many test missions, which allowed him to practice of both normal and emergency modes of system operations. Before going into space, doctors had to perform many tests on him to make sure his body could take the amount of pressure.
Now, just a handful of minutes remain until the spacecraft crew on the service tower call for the pilot of Friendship 7.
February 20th marks the launch of the NASA spacecraft Friendship 7, when John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. After being postponed 10 times, the launch finally boosted Glenn into space, where he made 3 successful orbits at 17,500 miles per hour, returning safely home to a national celebration.
At this point, the Friendship 7 was 162.2 miles from Earth. Each orbit would take 88 minutes and 29 seconds at a velocity of 17,544 miles per hour. At this point, the mission was panning out perfectly, until a malfunction disabled the heat shield on the third orbit, which made the entire world question, will John Glenn make it back home? One of the causes from the heat shield was a clogging in the attitude control jet at the end of the first orbit. A faulty switch in the heat shield circuit indicated that the clamp holding the shield had been prematurely released. John now had to abandon the automatic control system for the manual electrical fly-by-wire system.
Then at the end of the flight, though, that's where there was an indication that the heat shield might be loose, and that required then that we leave the retro pack on to help to hold the heat shield in place. And it meant that it burned off during re-entry, and that was I could look up over my head out the little window and see burning chunks of that coming by, but it worked, the heat shield worked fine, and the retro pack did burn off, and so I made a good re-entry with that, and everything worked out okay.
The success of Friendship 7 mission enabled NASA to accelerate further its efforts with Project Mercury. During less than 5 years, from Mercury start to finish, more than 2 million people from government and industry pooled their skills and experience to produce and manage the nation's first 6 piloted space flights. Mercury flights demonstrated that people could survive in microgravity for over a day without deterioration of normal physiological functions. Mercury also set the stage for projects Gemini and Apollo during the 1960s and all later US human spaceflight activities. Thus, the Mercury Atlas 6 mission of Friendship 7 was both a capstone event at the beginning of many more achievements in human spaceflight for NASA. John Glenn and the NASA Corporation has impacted humanity globally. They have kept America's reputation and have not only proven that it's possible to travel in space, but has also proven that anybody can do anything when the effort is put in.